Good afternoon. My name is Chris Watson. As you've heard, I'm with KVH Industries. We are a global satellite connectivity provider and integrated network solutions provider. I'm going to be kicking off this conversation, which is hopefully a little less scary and a little less grim than we've talked about with AI and cyber. I'd actually like to start by just asking for a show of hands, how many of you have ever said to your IT department or your home internet provider, I need less data and I need it to go slower? Anybody? Okay. That's because we are all so dependent on our connections. We are all connected with cell phones, we're connected with the internet. You can't get by without Zoom meetings, team meetings, things like that. But for many, many years at sea, it was a very different situation where seafarers, captains, the masters, the officers, the crew were saying, I don't have enough data. It's going too slow, it's too expensive, so I can't use it. Well, over the last decade or so, things have really changed with the emergence of VSAT, starting with the first 60 centimeter systems back in 2007 with new high throughput satellites, and there's new emerging technologies. So what I want to do today is just really cover some of the trends that we're seeing, some of the things that we're very excited about in the industry, and how it can make a difference in shipboard operations, in terms of efficiency, in terms of crew well-being and crew wellness, okay? So the pandemic really brought to the fore the demand for connectivity and data. All of a sudden, vessels couldn't simply be floating warehouses. They had to be connected nodes within a corporate network. They had to be able to do remote service. The crew had to be able to be in touch with friends and family who they might not be seeing for months at a time. And that demand has just continued to grow, because these are not simply ships, they're also the homes for millions of seafarers who need to be connected as well. What we're seeing right now in terms of projections, and just got one number up here, Euroconsult is projecting that over the course of the next 10 years, there's going to be a compound annual growth of more than 37% in terms of the amount of capacity that is going to be needed in the market, going from 63 gigabits per second to more than 1.5 terabytes per second. That's a huge gap. A terabyte is 1,000 gigabytes. That's massive over the next 10 years. Part of what's going to drive that is we're also going to see more than doubling the number of vessels that are equipped with high-speed broadband. But that's not the only driver. The only driver is a lot of the things that we talked about today. There's operations, remote service and support. If you've got a situation on board a ship and you're able to have your engineer having a live video conference, perhaps with augmented reality goggles, and they're talking to the engine or the HVAC or the pump manufacturer on shore, and they're able to actually do remote service, that's going to require data, but it's going to increase efficiencies and help reduce costs. Crew health and well-being. The days of simply bringing DVDs on board are gone. Crew want to be connected. They're used to being connected, especially as new, younger seafarers enter the industry. The acceleration of digitalization, digital twins, all of these things that the industry is now looking at as ways to be able to have more synchronicity between the shore and between the ship, to take advantage of efficiencies that can come from looking at data. For example, with IoT applications, you have the access to that big data. If the data is on board that ship, but it can't get off, it's worth nothing. But the need to have that communication, the need to get that data off is critical. And then increasing automation, and not even automation, it could simply be more smart operations or remote operations. You can't do remote operations without connectivity. So that's going to demand capacity, and it's going to demand speed. Now, according to Euroconsult, there are more than 190,000 vessels out there that have the size, the operations, the expenses that make them good candidates for something like VSAT or one of the new emerging services. Let's call it just high-speed broadband. 36,000 vessels are actually equipped with that. Sounds like a big number, but that means that 80% of the vessels that could be using high-speed broadband aren't. So what are they doing? They're using old, slow, low-capacity, very expensive connectivity, and they're limiting themselves to simply emailing their noon reports, occasional emails for crew, maybe an occasional phone call. It's the 21st century. We've got to be able to do better than that. And part of that is making sure that fleet owners, fleet operators, ship managers understand that this is affordable and that it's vital in terms of performance, in terms of the benefits that are available. Now, we're already seeing in the VSAT world, prices are coming down. They're coming down because there's more capacity, and they're coming down because of competitive pressures. And some of those competitive pressures are coming from the emergence of new technologies, low Earth orbit solutions and medium Earth orbit solutions. We just saw one right here, Starlink. First mover advantage. Everybody is interested in Starlink. Starlink is low latency, it's high speed, it's low cost. But Starlink is not going to be the only solution. Amazon Kuiper just launched their first 2 satellites. They're moving ahead with the development of their network. OneWeb has an operational network right now that they expect to have global coverage by the first quarter of 2024. And there's more to come. Intelsat is developing its own MEO, medium Earth orbit network right now. You've got Telesat, you've got SES. All of these are going to generate a 20 times increase in the capacity that's available for mobile users, for vessels, to be able to stay connected. And in fact, according to Euroconsult, almost 90% of vessels in 10 years will be relying on a non-geosynchronous orbit network as their primary connectivity, meaning LEO or MEO. This is going to be a huge game changer for everyone in the industry. But we do the ships, the crews, businesses on shore a disservice if the only place that we look is into orbit. Because there are other solutions that can be brought on board that can help with this connectivity. 5G getting a little carried away. 5G is practical at sea. Even if you've just got a basic antenna on board ship and you've simply got an antenna on shore, you can be 15, 20, 30 kilometers offshore and still have 5G capacity. And we're already seeing offshore antenna installations that are happening to take 5G even farther offshore. Because 5G in an optimal solution can be more than twice as fast as the maximum speeds that are currently being offered by LEO providers. And with per gigabyte pricing, that's on par. So all of a sudden, you've got the opportunity for a small, lightweight, inexpensive antenna to deliver more than twice the speed for the same cost. Our analysis of the more than 7,000 vessels we have on our network is the majority of those vessels spend the majority of their time actually within cellular range. Every vessel that is anchored right off of Limassol here, they're all in cellular range. They don't need to be using satellite. They can be using high-speed cellular. And even when you're closer to shore, you've got things like Wi-Fi. And what this is going to allow us to do is to be able to have a breadth of solutions that can be used. But how best to use those solutions? For years, the question was, what's the right service for me? Thinking you could only have one. And I posit that that is now the wrong question to be asked. The question should be, how do I take advantage of all of these options that are now available? And the answer to that is hybrid connectivity. Now, hybrid is not a new concept. If any of you have on board your vessels least cost routing, that's essentially hybrid. That's saying which service is available and which one is cheapest. Okay, I'm gonna use this one. And when that one's not available, I'm gonna switch to the other one. Or when you have a primary and a backup. That's a very simple, kind of dumb approach to hybrid. It's dumb meaning not intelligent, not dumb meaning, you shouldn't do it. Then it's, is this available? Yes or no? If not, I go to something else. But hybrid connectivity now, with the technology that's available, can be much more involved. It can be looking at the quality of the connection, okay? So Show of hands, how many of you have ever been at a sporting event, a concert, something like that, where you've taken a great photo and you want to send it to some friends, you want to upload it to social media, you just want to send a text message, and it doesn't go anywhere even though your phone is showing 5 bars. Anybody? Anybody? Okay, we've run into that. The signal looks great, but it's not going anywhere because everybody else is using it. An intelligent hybrid solution should be looking at that and saying, I'm not going to keep banging my head against this and trying to get data across it, even if I see that there's 5 bars or a really strong signal. It should be looking at the quality of the connection and making adjustments to use one of the other channels. And these can either run, one at a time, or they can run in parallel to provide even greater versatility for those vessels. Okay. So this is something that we at KVH have been working on for a number of years. Back in 2007, we launched the first, what we were calling mini VSAT. It was a 60-centimeter VSAT system using a Viasat global network that was geosynchronous or geostationary satellites. 2015, we moved over to high-throughput satellites with Intelsat, and that is the backbone of our connectivity, is that very high orbit, it's only a couple of satellites, high throughput, reasonable prices, especially as the prices are coming down now. But over the last year and a half, we've switched and we've said, there are these other great tools. We need to be able to make those available, again, in an intelligent solution. So our TrackNet system actually incorporates VSAT, 5G, and Wi-Fi all within a single antenna. So you don't have multiple installations that you need to do now. Now you've got a single antenna that can do all of this and then switch automatically. But then we've also said, Starlink offers a lot of really good benefits. So let's make that part of it. So our system is designed to be flexible enough that we can bring in other services. So for example, we're now offering Starlink. It's a single plug into the below decks unit, and it becomes integrated into that integrated hybrid solution. And it's switching intelligently. And then as other services come out, like OneWeb, Kuiper, things like that, we want to be able to offer those because a vessel, a fleet, is going to have unique challenges. They're going to have unique needs. And be able to say, we understand what your needs are, and we can take advantage of all of these different channels and this multi-orbit, multi-channel network to be able to deliver a solution. So if you're out there looking for an upgrade to your onboard communications, whatever service provider you're talking to, this is in our belief, this is where it's going. This is where you should be looking for. Can they support this? And then being able to bring in even more things down the future. MEO solutions and things that we haven't even necessarily thought about. 2 years ago, nobody was thinking about Starlink. Starlink has just changed, the face of maritime communications. Something else is going to come along at some point and do the same thing. But then the nice thing is when you have all of these different points of communication, these different channels, they don't have to compete. They can complement one another. Starlink is a technological marvel. I mean, it's fast, it's low latency, it's inexpensive. The antennas, like you saw, very small. But it's a best effort network. We've seen this in the leisure industry where boats that, yachts that are equipped with Starlink will be in a harbor, a cruise ship will come in, and that cruise ship is absolutely riddled with Starlink antennas. They've got 10 or 12 of them on board. And all of a sudden, those leisure yachts can't get connectivity because of the contention, because the cruise ship is paying for some priority. They are getting that data. That's best effort. There's no committed information rate. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's something that you just need to adapt to. So if you take Starlink and you combine it with another system, a VSAT, a 5G, it opens up a realm of more robust connectivity, where you can have enterprise-grade cybersecurity, where you can have crew internet, crew calling, content delivery, where you can have 24/7 live service, live service and support. All these things that are critical to operations. Okay? And then once you have that, then you can think about, how do I augment that? How do I expand that? And that's where you can bring on value-added and managed services like cybersecurity, like crew content delivery, crew internet access, SD-WAN bonding that's taking advantage of multiple channels for higher speeds and greater capacity, voice calling. all of these things that take your connectivity on board ship from a simple pipe to a truly powerful, robust, engaged means of communication for everybody on board and for operations on board ship, including IoT. So the way we look at it is the future of maritime connectivity is integrated, managed solutions. And they start with that foundation of connectivity. What are the different channels that are going to be available? How can they be brought on board? How will they interact? How will you choose to use them? And then you have the ongoing life cycle support. Working with application engineering to make sure that the network on board your ship meets your unique needs, because one size doesn't fit all. Deployment, things like proactive monitoring. An example of that is our TrackNet systems and our older TrackPhone systems every day are sending reports on more than 150 health and performance parameters for the terminals and for the network. And if anything is out of spec, it's immediately flagged, escalated to our engineers so we can work on addressing the problem before the ship even knows it happens. That's the power of IoT, but you have to get the data off the ship in order for that to work. And then being able to add on all of your different value-added services that really expand the capabilities and the capacity of what you're able to do with connectivity on board. And then having middleware, network management, bandwidth management, intelligent systems below deck that are helping to control that system to make sure that it is meeting your needs at all times. The end result of this is a more robust, more versatile, more reliable, and more affordable connectivity solution for officers, for the crew, for the ships, and for operations on shore. So, thank you very much.